All right. Look, it's not often that you get to introduce a rock star. Bill Clinton, we all know, was our 42nd president of the United States. But I want you to think of something. You know, presidents have a tough life, and he did it for us for 8 years extraordinarily well and did so much for our nation. But you talk about an afterlife, and you've never seen anything like this. This is probably the most important person, most visible person in the world who continues to bring value to the world in everything he does every single day. Folks, if you don't follow the Clinton Global Initiative, President Clinton every day is making this world a safer, healthier, more secure place for us. That's our president doing that for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, a real warm Arizona welcome, President Bill Clinton.
ASU. I love being for me. I came here when I was running in 1992. I came here when I was running in 1996. We had a big rally here in 96, and I became the first Democratic candidate since Harry Truman to carry Arizona. I want to thank everybody who made this rally possible. Thank you, Jimmy Eat World, for the entertainment. Thank you, Mayor Greg Stanton, for being here. Thank you to Bill Rowe, the Arizona Democratic chairman, and my great friend Jim Peterson, his predecessor, and another out-of-state visitor, Representative Loretta Sanchez from Orange County, California. Thank you for being here. I want to thank Kevin Johnson, who's been a friend of mine a long time. I used to cheer for him when he was playing basketball for you. And he was standing up here tonight, and one of the young men here with me came up and said, "Look at Kevin from behind. Look at Kevin from behind. He looks like he's about to dribble." He's doing a fine job as mayor of Sacramento, and you can be proud of him. And I want to thank all the members of the Arizona Cardinals who are here today.
Where are they?
Mostly I want to thank Dr. Richard Carmona for running for the United States Senate. I can't think of a person in America, without regard to party, who is more needed at this moment in our history in the U.S. Senate, by virtue of his biography, which you just heard, by virtue of his record, by virtue of his philosophy. Look, folks, I think the Democrats should have a good claim on this collection, and I made my case for that in Charlotte.
Yeah!
There are, since President Kennedy took office in 52 years, the Republicans had the White House 28 years, we had it 24, 66 million new jobs. What's the score? Democrats 42, Republicans 24. But the most important thing is I watched that debt clock running up at the Republican convention. And I heard all that talk in the last debate. Now, in those 51 years, there have been exactly 5 surpluses run. What's the score? Democrats 5, Republicans 0. And so I say that because I got a lot of Republican friends who care about the debt, and I got a lot of Republican friends who want to invest in education, and I have a lot of Republican friends who are not anti-immigration. We're just talking about who's in control of their machine right now. And I was honored when this man, a lifelong independent, decided he would run on our party's ticket for the United States Senate, not because I thought he would be a party line man down the line, but because I thought he believed in the fundamental things that matter today. And here they are. Shared prosperity is better than trickle-down economics. A philosophy that says we're all in this together, that's what the GI Bill was all about, is better than you're on your own. If we had left him behind when he dropped out of high school, if we had let him serve our country in Vietnam and dodge all those bullets, and if he got a Purple Heart, he didn't dodge them all, and let him come home to nothing, this would be a poorer country. Every life we let go makes the rest of us poorer. And the more we expand opportunity for everybody, the more we build a great middle-class country for the 21st century, the more we give poor people a dignified, honorable chance to work their way into it, the more millionaires and billionaires there'll be, because we'll all be rich. And the final thing I want to say, and that's why I was glad to see a fair number of Republicans come out for Rich, is that in every successful country on earth today, there is a recognition that we face a blithering array of complex challenges. And in an environment like that, creative cooperation beats constant conflict every single time. So I just want to say a few things. First of all, he's the only man in America who's been a full-time trauma surgeon and a full-time law enforcement officer over 25 years. And, you know, part of the time he was head of the SWAT team. So the head of the SWAT team is a trauma surgeon. I expect before this is over to see one of those Republican super PACs run an ad attacking him for trying to generate business for himself. There he was, running the SWAT team. The only reason he did it was so he could wound a few people and make jobs for himself as a trauma surgeon. That's the kind of craziness we're living with today. We got whole networks devoted to trying to make you miserable every single day of your life. Just keep you torn up and upset all the time. You're laughing, but you know I'm telling the truth. And yet, who wants to live like that? And what good can come of it? Look, we're in this boat together, and we got to row. The reason the DREAM Act is the right thing to do is an answer with two parts. Yeah, there are a lot of Richard Carmonas out there today, and they all deserve their chance at their dreams. But second reason is this is a big, complicated world, and one of America's great advantages is that we got somebody here from everywhere. And because of the immigrants, we are younger than Europe. We are younger than Japan, and believe it or not, within 20 years, we'll be younger than China. And I'm telling you something, folks, having lost it, I can tell you, youth matter. It is the power, the energy, the drive of the future. It matters. So I'm going to just talk about one youth issue that hadn't been dealt with. When the GI Bill became everything Rich said it was, paving the path to opportunity, it was the first legislation of its kind. We didn't have all that many people going to college and universities in America or anywhere else. And because we got there first and we rose faster, it built the great American middle class of the late 20th century. By the 21st century, everybody else had figured it out. And you had all these other countries, many of them smaller than we were, trying to do exactly the same thing. Meanwhile, the cost of college had gone up twice the rate of inflation. All over the country, state legislators were cutting back on the money they were sending to colleges. I'm not talking about just since the financial crash. I'm talking about for the last 20 years, as the public school student body grew larger than ever before, and the anti-tax fervor that his opponent represents was cutting money away from state and local government. So colleges got in more trouble, and young people had to rely more and more on loans and scholarships to pay the bills, whether they were going to undergraduate school or medical school or something in between. So roll around to 2012, and instead of being first or second in the world in percentage of our young adults with four-year college degrees, we have fallen to 16th. And that is very bad news for the American dream and for our future. We got to get back up at the top of the heap. So, one of the things that is going to help us do this is the remarkable student loan reform passed by the Congress that the President signed a few years ago, 2009. Here's what it does. It's a big issue in the Senate race. I want you to understand, this is a clear issue. Every young person here and every not so young person who cares about this should know about this. This alone should be enough to determine the course of this Senate race. Used to be the federal student loan program was essentially a guarantee by the federal government of banks loaning money to students. When I was president, we started making that optional, and we gave colleges the chance to essentially certify the students they had for the federal student loan program. We would loan them the money direct, put aside a loan reserve to make them safe, and guess what? The average student in the 1990s saved $1,300 in interest payments on every $10,000 they borrowed. And because they could pay the loans back, they all paid back because we let them pay the loans back as a small fixed percentage of their income. That is now the law everywhere in the United States for the whole student loan program. There are already 1 million young Americans who have chosen to pay this loan back as a fixed percentage of their income. And what does that mean? Number one, you never have to drop out of college again, never, because you're worried about the cost. And number two, it means when you do get out, you don't have to take a job because of your loan payments. Your loan payments will be determined by the job you take. So if some young Richard Carmona wants to go to work for the sheriff's department or to be a school teacher or a nurse, they can afford to do it because the loan they have to pay off will be paid off in monthly increments as a fixed percentage of their income and no more. Now that's a huge deal. And believe it or not, it gets better. Believe it or not, that actually saved you as taxpayers $60 billion over 10 years. It was cheaper than the old system. So what was done with the money? It was put into guaranteeing continued increases in Pell Grants and the continuation of the tax credits for tuition. A big part of the so-called Ryan budget and the commitment of Governor Romney is I tell you, I couldn't make this up. These people are concerned about the debt. A big part of their commitment is to repeal that law, go back to the old system, give the $60 billion to the banks, reducing Pell Grants in the future, putting the tax credits in question, making the student loans more expensive, and making them hard to repay. If you believe in the legacy of the GI Bill that made this man, if you want there to be a 21st century modern American middle class with good education, you've got to vote for Rich Carmona for the United States. For me, even though this law was passed 3 years ago, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of university students, never mind their parents, brothers, and sisters, who don't even know this. There were people in this audience who did not know it until I told you tonight. So tomorrow, I want you to start going up to total strangers on the street and saying, you got to vote for Rich Carmona because of ASU and the University of Arizona and all the other colleges in this state, and the promise that the change in the student loan law opens for unimaginable numbers of young people. Now, I'll tell you another reason you ought to vote for him. Because he's a veteran with a Purple Heart, and because this country has 300,000 people who came home after serving their country in Iraq or Afghanistan, who probably would have died in a previous war because battlefield medicine is so much better. But they were injured primarily by what we call roadside bombs and what people in the service call IEDs, improvised explosive devices. And when they explode and don't kill you, they still shake your brain around. So we have literally hundreds of thousands of young Americans with traumatic brain injuries of varying degrees of severity. They have to be taken care of. When all these people say they want to give me a tax cut and they're going to adopt Congressman Ryan's budget, I don't know what's going to happen to those veterans, but I'll tell you something. They put it on the line for us. I'm glad they survived. Now we got to make sure they get a chance to thrive, and that's another reason Rich Carmona ought to be the United States Senator. Another reason he ought to be for him. Since that health care bill passed, because of the requirement that 80 to 85% of your insurance premium now has to go to health care instead of profits and promotion, over $1 billion in refunds were paid this year to people with health insurance. And a lot more benefited them because a lot of insurance companies, instead of paying the refunds, went in and just lowered the rates. Because that bill passed, we had health inflation below 4% 2 years in a row for the first time in 50 years. And it's true, as the Republicans point out, that a part of that bill was taking the advice of a committee of doctors and other health professionals that Medicare costs would not increase as much in the next 10 years as they thought, so they could allocate $716 billion less to pay for those increases without cutting any services to anybody. And because of that, 8 years were added to the life of the Medicare trust funds, which means we got till 2024 to fix it, and we don't have to adopt a voucher for Medicare. We got time to figure out how to control health care costs. It means that the donut hole in the senior citizen drug program can be closed, saving the average senior $600 a year. It means that there's money there to provide insurance for the tens of millions of people who don't have it today because they got pre-existing conditions. That's what it means. So Governor Romney and the congressman and all these other people, they say, oh, we got to repeal this bill. We got to get rid of this. We got to give this money back to the providers.
They're horrible.
Now, keep in mind, the AARP, hardly the enemy of America's senior citizens, they endorsed his position and the position of the professionals. They said, that's right, we're not going to have the inflation we thought we were going to have. Even more, since our Republican friends love the market, look what the market said about it. After these terrible changes were adopted, designed to crush the Medicare Advantage program, what happened? More insurance companies than ever before said, there's still enough profit in there, let us provide those services. More than ever before. 1. 2, 17% more seniors took advantage of the program. 3, their costs went down 16% because of the competition that's still in there. So don't be fooled. If you got a parent or a grandparent who depends on Medicare, if you want to save it over the long run, you better vote for Rich Carmona for the United States Senate. Last thing, I can't let this go because I'm at ASU. All over the world, the biggest challenges that countries are facing today is creating enough jobs for the people of age to work and creating enough good jobs for the people who have education. It's not an American challenge, it's a global challenge. We sell the world's least expensive AIDS medicine in 70 countries. We build healthcare systems in 33 countries. I work with farmers in Asia and Latin America and Africa. I work everywhere. This is a problem everywhere.
4 more years.
Now, we are here at the university which is trying to lead Arizona into being the global capital of solar power, solar technology. In every single international scientific study, the United States of America ranks first or second in the world in the capacity to generate electricity from the sun and the wind. Every one. But a lot of countries are doing better than us. On a sunny spring day earlier this year in Germany, where the sun shines on average as much as it does in London, they nevertheless generated 66 gigawatts of electricity from the sun, the equivalent of 20 nuclear power plants running flat out. Wow. Germany is 1/3 our size. Their sunshine efficiency is about half ours. Deutsche Bank, a bank, said they've netted 300,000 new jobs out of their program, and if we adopted it, we would get 2 million if we just had the German system. But we already have, with much more limited support, 100,000 people working in solar in America. That's more people than we have working in the coal industry, more people than we have working in the steel industry. And his opponent and their nominee for president want to get rid of the elemental supports that are going to bring America to the forefront of this, give us a new modern economy, and stop the climate from burning up and compromising your future. You've got to elect Rich Carmona. So, now otherwise, I don't have strong feelings about this race. Let me just remind you one other thing. It's not an issue in the election, but it ought to be. Far more than the House of Representatives, the United States Senate has serious responsibilities in the area of national security. Yeah. When he was the Surgeon General, he worked on public health issues like the adverse effects of secondhand smoke. And I'm glad he did. He did a good job on that. But he also worked on the question of bioterrorism, how to prevent it, and what to do about it if it occurs. I would like to have a medical doctor in the United States Senate who understood health care at home and the national security implications of biological and chemical warfare. None of this really should have anything to do with party. It only has to do with party because of the extremism which has taken control of the other side. And I think sort of has a chokehold, which has any chokehold has the adverse effect of cutting off oxygen to the brain. Now, we're having a good time here, but this is really serious. You just remember, I've been doing this a long time.
We know.
I travel the world. I see the most successful societies on earth. Everywhere that's working, creative cooperation is dominant over constant conflict. Everywhere that's working, we're all in this together, trumps you're on your own. Everywhere that's working, shared prosperity is preferred over trickle down. This is not a closed question. It is not about Republicans and Democrats and independents. It's about what really matters when it's all said and done. For those of us who have more yesterdays than tomorrows, I can tell you right now what really matters to me. The only thing that matters. Are people better off when you quit than when you started? Do children have a brighter future? And are things coming together or being torn apart? If you want to be better off when you quit than when you started, if you want the young people to have a brighter future, if you want America to come together and not be torn apart, you can do something about it in Arizona. You can send Rich Carmona to the United States.